They're no match
pitchforks
for
and dogs, yeah,
for
guns.
right? And then as she was trying to escape to Cologne, she actually hitched a ride with what turned out to be a car full of Nazis.
Yeah, it was like a VW Bug with a Nazi symbol, the a swastika on the front, and it was, you know, the driver and the person in the passenger seat. But the funny thing was that the Nazis had a certain view of what a Jewish person looked like. They had this picture in their head, and that's exactly what the person looked like. So here was two women that looked nothing like that. So they figured, okay, well, you're not Jewish. So, and they were, you know, attractive. So they brought them into the car and they gave them a ride. And they actually turned behind them and said, "Oh, and you're lucky we picked you up because there's Jews everywhere here." and Diane even says, "So what does a Jew look like?" And they would describe it to them, and they would just be chuckling in the back, you know. But yeah, pretty gutsy. In fact, even today I call her very ornery. She's going to about turn 89, so I don't know if she wants me to say that now. But
Also, when she was finally getting out of Germany, then she nearly escaped death when she was on the train twice.
And that scene was actually what made me want to tell the story. When she told me that that little anecdote when we were sitting together, I realized that it was a story that needed to be told then, because she had to get to a boat, so she had to take the train to the harbor, and she took the Queen Elizabeth across into to England. But even though they let Jews on the train, they didn't really want them to leave. So they put them in the car with the animals, because even on their passports they were called subhuman. So as they were traveling along, Diane realized that there was no animals in the car with them. So she, as gutsy as she is, she decided to walk into first class, which was punishable by instant death. And so she ended up just diving into a car as the SA were coming, and tried to hide. And there was this guy with a newspaper just, you know, hiding his face and just reading. And the SA followed her into the car and ended up being a Swiss envoy that said, "Hey, this is Swiss land, you know, leave them alone."
Right, and they did end up murdering everyone in the boxcar.
Well, yeah, the Swiss envoy went to the window and said, "Look what happened to your car," and they had subtracted the car from the rest of the train and machine gunned it from both sides.
That's terrible, terrible.
Everybody died in there.
She was, her mother was a famous actress at the time.
Yeah, working with an Italian director, yeah.
Right, and you tell the story about when they went to the opera, and who was in the box next to theirs?
Hitler, but it was at that time it was 1935, 36, and he really hadn't come to power, so he was still trying to gain the power. So he gave a box of chocolate to every person who had a booth or a box in the opera. So she had 8 or whatever it was, years old or 12 years old. She had to get a box of chocolate from Hitler.
That is an amazing story. Sad to say, in the end, Diane Jacobs lost her entire family to the Holocaust, thanks in part to her Aunt Ida.
Yeah, she made sure that she wouldn't be that part in the book, that her Aunt Ida was informed on her own family. But you know, Diane had her one-ups by informing on her to the Russians after the war was over. So.
Right.
So Aunt Ida got a nice trip to Siberia.
And I guess that was fairly common, people turning in their neighbors and...
Well, yeah, and she was even dating a Nazi officer at the time, Aunt Ida, so...
Oh, well, there you go. And her father actually had a difficult time with the Nazi occupation.
Well, again, he was very affluent, and when everything was taken away, he not only lost his wealth, but he lost his mind. You know, last time that she saw him, he was in a mental facility.
Right, which was sad. So she had a dream of getting to America, and that kind of sustained her. And on her way, she was going via England. So she does finally get to England, and they make her work for her freedom, in essence,
right.
in farms.
An indentured servant for the most part. Yeah.
Right. And there was, again, anti-German prejudice then.
There was anti-refugee.
Okay.
You know, it's... everybody that was coming to England as a refugee, Yeah, there was definite prejudice against them because, jobs lost and all to that effect. And so, yeah, but she has, even though she was like 5'2", she had a way of sticking up for herself. So, especially when she learned all of the hand-to-hand combat and everything else during her resistance days. So.
Right, and she was actually, once again, had near-death experiences from the Luftwaffe bombings.
Yeah, she was in England during the Blitz, nothing like going from the frying pan to the fire. But yeah, she ended up being close to, ground zero on a couple of the bombings and ended up getting stuck in a railway station, subway station for days, yeah.
And then her apartment was bombed right around her.
Yeah, and she was drunk.
That was a funny, funny part of the book.
Where do you go during a bombing? So her and her roommate just, opened up some bottles and got drunk, and when they woke up the next morning, the roof was gone.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So she finally did get to America and wrote an essay that was honored at the Hollywood Bowl with all these famous movie stars.
Yeah, I mean, that was her goal from all along, was to be, with these movie stars, and that's what she knew growing up. And so she wrote an essay of how to be, what it was meant to be an American. Which is funny, her goal to be an American, then she ended up winning an award for her essay about what it meant to her. Pretty amazing.
So her story had a happy ending, which I love, and really the whole story sounds like the makings of a movie.
Yeah, well, we're working on that right now, on trying to get either some funding or some studio backing, because it's a story that is very cinematic. And so we already have a director attached, the director from the old TV show Shogun.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's taken an interest in it. So, and as I said, we're looking around.
Good. And I want to talk about, for a moment now, your book called The Awakening, because this is very different from Escape from Berlin, the Diane Jacobs story.
That's for sure.
This is a thriller set in Florida. So tell us about this.
That story is basically Sixth Sense. So it's a supernatural thriller. Again, it takes place in Florida, but really could take place anywhere. But it's about two girls who return home to Florida after their mother and Amanda's twin brother are killed during a car crash. And then she starts to see him, and other things kind of lead her along into a mystery where maybe it wasn't just a plain car crash.
So thrillers are quite a departure from the biography.
Yeah, and that's why when I did the biography, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Because I write cinematically, and funny enough, I actually write women better than I write men.
Mm-hmm.
So
who do you see playing Diane Jacobs?
Actually, I was thinking about Amy Adams, but the director thought maybe she might be a little old, but I think she can still pull it off. But then he sent me a list of other teenage actors and things to that effect. So I think he wants her to be more of a teenage. He brought Kristen Stewart on the thing, and a pile of others that I just can't think the names of. Exciting.
And you actually started your career in comic books with the Shadow Raven comic book series.
Yes, that's actually an audiobook.
Okay.
It's a full cast audiobook, just as if it was an old radio show. So you had the actors doing their parts, and it's music and sound effects and things to that effect. So yeah, but I started out in '95 with my first comic book series, Shadow Raven. And this has been an international bestseller, I understand. Well, the comic book originally sold out when it first started in '95, and then from there I did a card game, like Pokemon, with those characters. Okay. And then I did, we did the novel, and then we did the audiobook. So yeah, it's had a rendition, and then I even have my little action figure. We have a prototype little action figure of Shadow Raven. I love it. So hold that up so our camera can get a shot of the Shadow Raven. Is that what it sounds like? You do it. The Shadow Raven. Sounds like the shadow knows. Tell us about your latest book. Well, I started thinking that I wanted to get maybe a little younger audience, because I saw all these other books, like The Lightning Thief and all of those like young adult YA type of books being out. So, and I realized that a lot of the fairy tales were all public domain now. So I decided to take Peter Pan and Wizard of Oz and stick them together.
So the name of the book is?
The Battle for the Ruby Slippers.
Uh-huh.
And I said, what if the Wicked Witch was brought back to life? And when they bring her back to life, it ends up cutting through the walls between fantasy and reality, and now they're melding. So with the Emerald City ends up in the middle of Central Park, and Ellis Island becomes Neverland.
Oh, fun. It's kind of a
things that way.
dreamscape, or what kind of genre would you say that is?
Definitely fantasy. Definitely fantasy.
That's neat. And is that published now, available?
No, I'm only halfway through writing it.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, me too.
Now, tell us about this 3D production that you're doing.
Well, 3D, it's amazing to me because I really thought that 3D was going to be a fad, like it was back in the 50s.
Right.
But the studios are just dumping a lot of money into 3D. And, excuse me then.
But the studios, I think, right now are looking for some direction between web TV and trying to keep a younger audience and trying to compete on a new...
Well, the 3D TVs are, as far as JVC is concerned, are selling like off the shelf. They're selling them for $6,000 a pop and cannot keep them.
So they're looking for content.
Yeah, well, the DirecTV, definitely for one, ESPN are running purely 3D channels now.
Huh.
So, and they won't even show a commercial until the commercial was shot in 3D.
Aha.
And in one of the conventions, they released a prototype for a TV that you don't need the glasses for.
Well, wonderful.
So I think that's really when
They were never a great fashion statement.
Yeah, I think that's when everybody will catch on is when 3D you don't need glasses.
Now, do you see 3D merging with web TV?
Yes, eventually when the TV, you can actually access the internet from the TV. So I think then it'll catch on. There are already 3D channels on the web. So I think one's called the Yabazam. One of my shows has a 3D version in there.
Exciting. So tell me where our viewers can buy your books.
Amazon.com is where my books are right now, so you can definitely buy...
So Amazon.com, Escape from Berlin, the Diane Jacobs story,
Yep.
The Awakening, and the Shadow Raven comic book series. This
Yes.
sounds like so much fun. And your website is?
StayTunedTV.net.
StayTunedTV.net. Well, I can't believe we're out of time. This has
Wow.
gone so fast, and I've so enjoyed having you,
Thank you very
come and
much.
speak with us and tell us about the future of TV. I'm speaking with Frank Zanca, producer of StayTunedTV.net. I'm Donna Phelan. Join us again for Perspective.